Alabama's pro day. One guy ran like the wind. It's the best time since Forrest Gump wore number 44 in Tuscaloosa. What a day for Jalen Milroe, showing off his skills. We're going to talk some Ryan Williams. We're going to talk some more about the run game, which I'm really excited about, including Jam Miller and obviously Dre Washington transferring in. But we're going to get into all that right here. Plus, we got basketball that matters. We got a big game this week, Clint. It's against Robert Morris, round 1 of the NCAA tournament. All of that right here on the channel. So you guys that are hanging out with us know that we're brought to you by the great people at mybookie.ag and Cover Crimson. Roll Tide, everybody. Let me play the open for everybody. This is how we get people pumped up. This is like where you run through the smoke and out on the field. All right, there he is, Clint Lamb, back in sleepy Birmingham, Alabama. And here's Mick Gillispie in the city that never sleeps. Well, one of them, Las Vegas, Nevada. You ready, Clint? Are you ready for some basketball? I know you want me to put all the money on the Tide, but let's talk about Alabama's pro day.
It was on TV, but you were traveling all day, right?
All day, man. Look, I the kind of guy I am is that I left Pensacola Airport at 7:30, which means that it's an hour drive from Fairhope. So that's a 5:30 morning. With the hour in there, on the plane, get down, do this show. Well, I'm going to have a show with Jake Coker dropping from out here in the desert because that's the way I am. This is why it's a work trip.
You stay hustling, don't you?
Look, I got my Roback Alabama hoodie. This thing's great. I know you guys want to talk football, but when you're on the plane, you just pull that guy over right there and get some sleep.
Get some sleep. That's right, man. Pro day was pretty good, man. I got to go to that. A lot of interesting conversations happening, both before and after pro day. After pro days, a lot of times that's where I have a lot of my conversations with people, but I thought Jalen Milroe looked pretty good in the throwing drills, the throwing workout, I guess you would say. The 4.37 is what everybody's talking about. That's what Alabama posted as 40 time as on Twitter. Even though when I was watching it live, when I saw that time, I was like, it didn't feel 4.37S. Now, granted, I don't have a natural clock where I know that one way or another, but a lot of people, a lot of scouts, once the numbers actually started coming out, it was more so probably in that 4.4, 4.46, 4.47, kind of that range for a lot of scouts who were in attendance. So people really don't know which number to go with. Either way, I don't really think that it matters. I think Jalen Milroe is extremely fast. I think that it was pretty apparent to me watching it live that he kind of weaved on both attempts, meaning he didn't run in a straight line. I think that kind of hindered, his overall time, but still showed off the speed. Probably the biggest thing that I thought was pretty cool was how many guys participated in the throwing workout with him. Because obviously you got CJ Dupree and Robbie Oots going through this process, this pre-draft process themselves. But you had Jam Miller come out at running back. You had, Jeremy Bernard. You had Ryan Williams. You had Rico Scott, Isaiah Horton, the transfer from Miami. He went and got into the mix. So you had 4 receivers out there. You had a couple of tight ends and a running back. You don't really see that too often where you can kind of put everything on display, like throw into the tight ends, throw into multiple different styles of receiver. You got the big-bodied, Isaiah Horton. You got kind of the craftier Z receiver and Jeremy Bernard, who's more physical. You got Ryan Williams, who does everything. Rico Scott, kind of, Z slot option where you can move him around a little bit. But I thought it was really cool that all those guys who are not draft eligible, not only did they get the opportunity to go run routes in front of NFL scouts and head coaches and all that, but also just it's kind of getting the band back together one last time. So I thought that was pretty neat.
What'd you think about Isaiah Horton? I know we're talking Milro, and I do want to get your opinions on that, but this is kind of our first look at him in Crimson.
Yeah, I thought he looked physically really impressive. The length was on full display, not surprising. I thought he ran good routes. That's the thing. When you start getting into that like 6'3", 6'4", that kind of length, 6'5", it's harder to kind of get things going in a different direction. You see guys, they're more ball winners. They'll do a lot of vertical stem type of stuff with their routes, getting downfield, going up and kind of out physicaling, opposing defensive backs. But with Isaiah Horton, just watching him go through a lot of different routes that they were asking him to do digs. Just a bunch of stuff. I was very impressed. Obviously, Ron Williams looked good. Jeremy Bernard was out there running routes. Everybody looked good. But Isaiah Horton was the one that we really haven't had a chance to see in Tuscaloosa much yet. I thought it was pretty cool that despite the fact that he's only been on campus for a couple of months, the fact that he had never really played with Jalen Milroe, he was out there wanting to participate and do all that. And I thought the chemistry seemed to be pretty good between those two as well. So Alabama right now, we've talked a lot about the wide receiver room, Mick, but I think we need to keep talking about it. And there's something else that I want to share here in just a few minutes. But overall, it was a very impressive day from pretty much everybody involved.
Yeah, that is cool. That's really cool. It's exciting, when you get these pro days, and we're not sure exactly where Jalen Milroe is going to end up being drafted, but we are going to talk about it on Elephant in the Room. And actually, we're going to have Kenny White from out here in Vegas, Vegas insider, gambling expert, on with us. So we get into that conversation on the show. And it's because you really can't tell. There's no. They said the Steelers met with him. They need a quarterback. There's lots of teams that need a quarterback. When you see the throws that he can make, and you can see his ability to run, and then you see what the Ravens have done, with their quarterback, who's one of the best, Lamar. You know what? Hey, maybe somebody takes a chance, or maybe somebody drafts a guy pretty high.
Well, here's what I like about the Steelers. I don't think they're taking him at 21. I really don't. It could be wrong, but I think that dinner meeting would more so. Now, granted, maybe he plays his way into the first round. Maybe they decide, okay, we don't want to risk someone taking a chance on him in the second round before it can get back around to us. But I don't think it was for the number 21 overall pick. But what I like about what Pittsburgh did with their offense this offseason, that I think that if they got Milro, it would really help them. First of all, you do have Mason Rudolph. He actually performed pretty well for Pittsburgh down the stretch in 2023. They went 3-0. He helped get them into the playoffs. He kind of held his own against the Buffalo Bills in that game that they lost in the playoffs. But he was a pretty high commodity, when Tennessee signed them to be their backup behind Will Levis. Obviously, some up and down play from everybody involved with the Titans. But now he's back with Pittsburgh, and, it's possible that, if they don't get someone like Aaron Rodgers, that they end up rolling with Mason Rudolph as their starter. I don't know if he's like a multi-year option for them, which is why, I really would like Milro to sit for multiple years if possible. If he could do that, then I really think when he got on the field, you would see a completely different player. But what I liked about what they did offensively, last year they had Russell Wilson, who had that vertical passing ability, even though it's kind of, he's getting up there, mid-30s. The arm strength isn't quite what it used to be, but it's certainly still good enough. But they had George Pickens, who could really win downfield.
Right.
But now they've gone out and they've gotten DK Metcalf, who can do the same thing. That length, the speed. And so now you've got kind of two towering receivers who like to win vertically. With Jalen Milroe and the way that he liked to win at Alabama in the passing game, the vertical passing game, I think that would fit. And what it does is, the NFL is going to a lot of split safety looks. Not as playing as many guys in the box. They're trying to take away the vertical passing game from offenses. But what that does is it does take a guy out of the box. So if you can have a quality run game, especially when you can add that +1 with the rushing threat like Jalen Milroe, now you can start bringing those safeties back into the box, and then you can start making them pay for it vertically. And so I think that, while there are a lot of aspects of Jalen Milroe's game that I think he would need to continue to work on, especially mechanically, I do think that combination could allow him to have a lot of success. The rushing ability on top of the two vertical threats, and he kind of what he did in 2023 in the vertical passing game was unsustainable. But while those numbers did come back down to earth in 2024, that's still probably his biggest strong suit. So, I would like the fit in Pittsburgh, but there are some other teams that I think he would fit pretty well too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody's going to give him an opportunity. I think that he's going to surprise everybody and go in the first round.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think so. Now, what's your reasoning behind that?
Because it's a position that the NFL you have to take risks on. And if he goes, I'm not saying early first round, I'm saying late first round or second round. But he's one of those guys you look at and you're like, you can't go wrong taking a quarterback that can run that fast, that can throw that far. And if you can kind of get some of the bugs worked out that he struggled with down the stretch at Alabama, and you get the guy that played against Georgia, you're getting a damn good player. And that's a position like look around the league, man. There's not many difference makers at the quarterback spot. And that's why. I mean, period.
Quarterback play was certainly down last year. No doubt about that. And I think when you're watching quarterbacks and you're trying to figure out, okay, who's going to go in the first round, who's not going to go in the first round, this is kind of a widely held belief. I actually heard Aaron Murray talking about this on a podcast, but it's something that, he's not the first one to bring this up. The way that it's typically viewed is you normally want to see a guy with at least one elite trait that you can build around if you're going to take him in the first round. If he does, a lot of things well, but nothing like super great, like a Kenny Pickett. Go tell me when he was in the, coming out for the draft, tell me what he did at an elite level. Right. Nothing. And now he kind of didn't really do anything with Pittsburgh of significance. Ended up being Philadelphia's backup this year. Now he's been traded to the Cleveland Browns. We'll see what he does. But it's like, one thing, there are two things Jalen Milroe has that other quarterbacks really don't have. And this is the rushing ability and it's the arm strength. And so it is possible that he ends up going in the first round. I'm trying to think of guys like him who have been A, taken that high, but B, panned out. Like they're just, because Lamar Jackson, I just thought he was a lot more advanced as far as being a passer, even though he was still raw in that area too. Like Jalen Hurts, he ended up falling to the second round, but he had shown on the college level he could sling the football around quite a bit. We never really saw that too much from Milro because he only averaged 22 or 23 pass attempts per game. So he's never been a volume passer. And, I still think he's got a lot of work to do as far as pre-snap, post-snap, the reads, and mechanically a lot to clean up. It's going to take him some time. But, I think that Pittsburgh is a pretty, stable franchise, even though they haven't been all that great in recent years. Maybe that stability would allow them to take a risk on Jalen Milroe and sit him for at least 2025, maybe 2026 too. I just think that if you could probably get him set for multiple years, which I think would be ultimately be beneficial for him if he ends up going sometime on day 2. I've said I could see possibly the first round, but second round starts to make a lot more sense. Third round is that sweet spot for me. Wouldn't be completely floored if he fell to the beginning of day 3, even though I think, somebody at some point on day 2 is going to probably pull the trigger. So that would be the most likely kind of range for him. But overall it was a good performance. And the other thing too from Pro Day today that I wanted to talk about or at least touch on was Tyler Booker. He did not run a 40, which was kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he run, but he ran a 10-yard. His 10-yard split at the combine was like a 1.96. That's historically bad. Now, granted, he just, from an athleticism standpoint, it showed up on tape quite a bit. He didn't really fit Kaylin Debor's system, but, I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it kind of was at the combine. But the historically bad makes him a complete outlier to go in the first round and have success as far as when you look historically, was that 10-yard split. He ended up running just that, and I think he improved his time from a 1.96 to a 1.87. So that was certainly beneficial from him and probably needed. I'm starting to worry about his positioning in the first round. I still think someone towards the back half of the first could end
You
up.
think he's going to slide because of that, huh?
Yeah, and he's going to need to go into a gap power scheme. If he does that, I think he'll be completely fine. I mean, like the Lions, the Ravens would certainly be one. The Titans, the Philadelphia would be a great landing spot for him. But he's going to probably end up needing to go somewhere like that to have a lot of success. That first of all, that limits the amount of teams that you can go to, and the fact that there are athletic concerns like those teams that fit, like they've got to have a need for Tyler Booker. So just the combination could end up working out. I could see like the Titans at the top of the second taking him if he somehow did fall to day two. But we've seen it before. It would be unfortunate, but I do think he helped himself today with improving that time.
Interesting. Hey, guys, we're going to be talking about this more on covercrimson.com. 25% off the annual subscription. Clint's on there. I'm on there. Stacy's on there. EG's on there. You guys are on there. And we do this every single day. We get on there and talk Alabama, all of that kind of stuff. So join us on there. All right, we're going to get into more football. Why not talk about Hollywood? I mean, you got all the cameras there for Pro Day. What about Hollywood? Ryan Williams in the slot. I could see this getting more opportunities, change coverages.
Yeah, it's something like last year. I haven't really been viewing him as like that kind of primary slot option because Jeremy Bernard spent about 50% of his time in the slot last year. It was like a perfect 50-50 split. And then when you looked at Ryan Williams, I think he was like just over 17% of his snaps were spent inside. And so it's like, okay, Isaiah Horton, he's a guy like career-wise in 3 years, I think he's played about 5% of his snaps inside. I mean, he's not really a slot guy.
Right.
And Kaylin Debor brought that up when he was asked about slot options. But I thought, okay, the way
Should I play this, by the way? You want me to play this?
Yeah, I would.
Play this and then let's pick it up.
Yeah, but we'll go ahead and play.
Wide receivers, how has Cole Adams looked coming off of the injury, and who else in the receiver room is a real natural fit for the slot the way Cole seems to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we have a number of things that we can do. Cole, first of all, to answer your question, easing into things, the slot is definitely his spot. He feels the most comfortable. He's always, when I talk about quarterback friendly, he's that guy that is friendly with the quarterback in the right place, a heady guy, going to make the catches that are there for him, be consistent that way. And, just working in, kind of, building on what he did last fall before he got hurt. One thing in the slot that bringing in like an Isaiah Horton and having more length on the outside now with Jalen Hale too has allowed Ryan to move around different spots, and between he and Germ and really I think Isaiah could play maybe not the slot all the time, but these guys are very versatile. They kind of have their starting points, but we can move around, and I think that is really what we like to do because we want to have a very unpredictable offense, and so certain guys in certain spots don't carry over from week to week, and we can utilize their strengths still.
Is Brooks a natural slot?
Yeah, I would say he's that's his starting point right there is in the slot. You think right away, get the ball to him and let him do his thing, but he's really good down the field too. Has really good body control, can win on defenders, down the field, not just in, the first couple of yards and when he's got the ball in his hands. So been really impressed with him.
That's interesting. A couple things. I feel like DeBoer's a little bit challenged right now to try to go out there and make some offense happen. He's been criticized, I call it the Milro effect. But at the same time, like he's got so many options at wide receiver. I mean, it's a deep room. 6 guys transfer out, Clint, and I feel like they're better.
Well, yeah. And the reason that slot conversation is important, at least in my opinion, it's something I really didn't think about. But Ron Williams, he was a 17-year-old freshman, and he was a freshman. And so when I'm looking at kind of his slot numbers, it's like, okay, just over 17%. Starting to get in that like 1 out of every 5 snaps is spent inside. But you look at Bernard and 50-50 split, you just naturally think, okay, he'll probably be the primary slot guy. I still think that, by the way. But you do like to move guys around and create mismatches. And if you've got a guy like Ryan Williams who can play inside and out, you can it's a lot easier for you to create matchups for players like that when they're, one thing about Isaiah Horton, the fact that he does play such a small percentage of his snaps inside, you can try to move him around, but it's just a lot more difficult, and he's not as comfortable doing some of that stuff. But with Ron Williams being a freshman, it kind of makes sense that he would play a much smaller percent than he will moving forward in the slot because it's putting more on his plate. So I really didn't think about it in those terms, even though I probably should have. Him bringing that up, I thought that was interesting. Like, you look at Cole Adams, spent over 90% of his, roughly 80 whatever, snaps that he played in the slot. He's a primary slot option. Jalen Hell in 2023 spent just over 15% of his snaps in the slot. And so it's, coming out of high school, Hell played a lot more inside. But when he was talking about Horton and he was talking about Hell, I just think those guys are more so viewed as those X receivers out on the perimeter, do the stuff as far as winding downfield and doing all that. Because, like, when you have certain things that you'll call to send the slot vertically, but with where the safeties are positioned, like if a guy's further inside, safeties can get on top of that a lot easier. So you just don't see as much vertical stuff from the slot as you will from the perimeter guys. So that's why I think that's kind of important, but they'll be able to move Ryan Williams around. And another guy that I wanted to talk about is Rico Scott, because Rico Scott is a guy who everybody is talking about. I mean, Malachi Moore was asked like a player that's kind of standing out to him right now. The one guy he brought up was Rico Scott and just said he's an extremely hard worker. He's kind of taking his game to a new level. And I wanted to read this is the first time I've shared this information, but I did want to bring this up because as I'm hearing this, and Rico Scott was out there today, he was didn't really play a ton this past season, was at least familiar with Jalen Milroe through working, especially bowl practices, preparation, and all that stuff. He was, it made sense for him to be out there to an extent, but I was surprised to see him. I thought, having 4 receivers, you really don't need that. But it kind of just the way that everybody's buzzing about this guy right now. I actually had a source yesterday that texted me, and I didn't think much. I mean, I did think of it, but I'm giving it a lot more credence today than I was yesterday. But his exact words were, see, you're talking a lot about the wide receiver room. Great. They're all good, but you need to be talking about Rico Scott a lot more.
Wow.
So don't know if you can see that. But so he sent that yesterday, and I thought that was pretty interesting. We had a kind of a back and forth about it. I don't want to share, too much of what was said, at least not right now. But and then today when you see Malachi Moore and everybody, it's like I have hyped up a lot of receivers so far, and I'm still high on everybody. They're all good, but Rico Scott is a guy has the ability to play inside and out. I thought was really good after the catch coming out of high school. I know at Alabama's camp coming out of high school in like 2022, he ran like a 4.42 or something like that in the low 4.4s. That's probably going to be a guy who gets down in the 4.4 even, maybe even sub 4.4 by the time he finishes and continues to develop on the college level. But, he was a true 50-50 split guy too, only played about 90 snaps this year, I think, but about 45 of them were inside, 45 of them were outside. And so he's another guy that you can move around the Z, the slot, so like we're talking a lot about receivers. I definitely think that we need to be talking about Rico Scott more.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us in the comments section. And let me tell you this, March Madness is here, and you're going to want to take advantage of this 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip when using the code Crimson, right? Crimson at mybookie.ag. Not all of us can be out here in Vegas, Clint.
I know I can't. I'm just stuck with allergies or a cold or whatever it is that I have right now.
No, that's your extended hangover from the bachelor party.
I do think that caused it because I think my 3 hours of sleep a night hurt my immune system. And it was, I was up in the mountains. So they told me it was allergies. I just don't know that I always trust maybe I should trust what doctors tell me. But I have my questions because I just don't. Allergies have never gotten to me like this. But I probably sound terrible. I apologize to everybody.
You sound good.
But I'm certainly not in Las Vegas. Are you going to win some money? Like, are we going to see you come Monday when you become a millionaire?
Man, I do the tailgate show. We have this guy named Kenny White that's out here. and he's become a friend. You know, he does the tailgate show every Saturday. But I've never met him in person. But he's like Mr. Vegas. I went and met him, and we met at the South Point Casino. It's cool. And he's like, "Hey, I'm taking you to the Circa, and this is a casino for sports gamblers." And let me tell you something. It was a casino for sports gamblers. I mean, it was like the creme de la creme. Like I don't even know how big the TVs were because they were so big. And I want to watch Bama win 2 tournament games in there. And I might get crazy in there. I might. You know,
what happens in Vegas, right?
Hey man, I'm a yeller. You know, when the Tide's winning, I clap loud. I'll yell roll Tide. So it's going to be fun, man. I can't wait.
I hope you have a blast, man.
I'm having a good time already. It's just a long flight from South Alabama. Anyway, guys, look, like and subscribe. Get in the comments section. We're going to read your comments. And again, if you can't get out to Vegas, mybookie.ag, you can do all the same stuff there. Take Bama all the way. They're a 23-point favorite. Kenny told me he had Alabama in his book that he does 28. So that's 23, 28 gives you 5 points. Take Bama. They're gonna cover, according to Kenny. All right, let's talk about running backs. Now, I'm going to play Coach DeBoer. We'll just start out with this clip, and then you kind of give me what you think, and then we're going to talk about carry opportunities, which I'm interested in, Clint. Really?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and play the carry opportunities because I feel like that's the more important one here.
Go with that one.
Quarterback position. I mean, obviously, Jalen kind of took up a lot of the responsibilities when it came to the run game last year. I'm curious.
Took the ball.
Out that, I guess, whoever the quarterback is, without that kind of running ability, I mean, they're athletic, but I mean, how do you expect, or what's kind of the pitch in terms of making up, I guess, the production lost in terms of the quarterback run, moving into the run game?
Yeah, I think you kind of think, well, the runs Jalen had just translate over to running backs, but I think a lot of it was the style of offense too. To me, those runs go to the running backs, but they also might be a few more pass attempts that you have that the play action game gets opened up by with more handoffs to the tailback, and I see a lot of that kind of developing right now with the play action game because there are more carries that the running backs have. So it just, the system is the same. The concepts are the same. It's just what direction you call more plays when it comes to the style of runs, which are, definitely more tailback oriented right now for sure than what we saw a year ago.
There you go. I mean, I think that's a good point. And part of it's like, you can criticize all you want, but when you see Jalen Milroe running a 4.37 40, or however you say that, you got to let the guy run the ball.
Yeah, and so this is what I've done to kind of explain this to people, and I got notes on this because I do kind of when I explain things, probably would do a better job of it in written form. But in 2024. Jalen Milroe averaged 24.5 pass attempts per game, which was ranked just inside the top 100. In 2023, it was 21.8, which was also ranked just inside the top 100. When you start comparing that to what Michael Penix did in 2023, it was 37, which ranked 9th in the country. And then in 2022, it was 42.6. So that was tied for 4th. So you talk about these two different styles and how they kind of collided in Tuscaloosa between what the coaching staff kind of was or wanted to be versus what Milro was and what he, needed to do in order to be successful. I mean, close to 13 carries a game, led the team with 168 carries. So what I'm looking at is with Milro's roughly 70 carries gone, plus you've got roughly about 80 carries from Justice Haynes gone. Collectively, that's about just under 20 carries per game that's now departed, right? We based off of what he was saying about the pass attempts, you would fully expect that to increase. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up doing research is that Alabama the last 2 years has averaged just over 66 plays per game on offense. When you look prior to that, they were always in the low to mid 70s, 72.2, 76.8, 71.6. 69 in 2018, but they were kind of normally in that range. So there's two ways to not run as many plays. You can either be very efficient with your scoring, like Tua Tagovailoa when he was slinging the football around and stuff. He didn't need a bunch of pass attempts. They didn't need a lot of plays. They were winning downfield. They were scoring quickly, pretty consistently. So, that's one way to kind of keep your offensive plays down. The other way is kind of the more so what it was under Jalen Milroe the last couple of years through multiple offense coordinators. It wasn't just Jalen Milroe's fault, just using him because he was the one that was involved with both. And that was more so like a lot of offensive stall outs. Like you didn't have a lot of long sustained drives. And we talked about it to start the season. Alabama, when they were having a lot of offensive success, they were scoring very quickly. So fewer plays. So if you combine the 20 roughly carries that are going to be added into the offense that they're losing from last year, and then you say roughly 5 or 6, four, at least somewhere between 4 to 6, more plays per game, which is what I would expect. You look at Washington, 78 plays per game in 2022 and about 70 in 2023. You start doing the differences there, and it's like, okay, probably about 20, what I would call probably 25 opportunities. Now, Ty Simpson or Keelan Russell or Austin Mack, they're still going to get carries. They're not going to just be a statue back there that never runs the football. But I would say that instead of close to 13 carries a game, you might drop back to 4 to 5. And then as far as pass attempts, I think somewhere, especially if it's Ty Simpson, I feel like the safe range would probably be somewhere between like 30 to 32 pass attempts per game. So 24.5 for Jalen Milroe this past season. That's an increase of about 5, 6, 7 per game, somewhere in that range. So, but just from Ty Simpson, I think of that 25 that we were talking about, what I would call opportunities, roughly about 9 to 12 of those would be going to Ty Simpson, whether it be through pass attempts or whether it be through, him still running the football some, because he does like to run the football. That would still leave 13 to 15 roughly, somewhere in that range, opportunities for running backs, for them to touch the football more. Now, some of those can go to Jam Miller to where he's not averaging just, I think it was 11.1 or 11.2 carries per game this past season, get him up closer to 15 maybe. Maybe it's Richard Young getting, more than Justice Haynes did. I mean, he averaged under 7 carries a game. I don't think Alabama's RB2 this upcoming season is going to, see that little volume. But, probably, he's going to see a portion of that. Dre Washington's probably going to see a portion of that. Right now, I don't want to go beyond 3. We'll keep it as a 3-headed running back monster. But, that's kind of how I think the coaching staff is more so envisioning it. Like you're going to see a percentage of those carries go to the quarterback in the passing game. The quarterback's still going to run the football. It's not all going away. But that's still going to leave added carries for the running backs. And so that's where the math starts to work out. I mean, this took a long time to do, by the way, to kind of crunch these numbers. I'm going to be sharing all these in written form in case I just completely botch that and no one understands what I'm saying. That's going to be over at covercrimson.com. But that's how you can kind of make it work with the increased pass attempts while also still getting the running backs involved. I do think there will be a lot more opportunities than people realize.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, because, part of Milroe's game was his ability to run the football. Say hi with a Roll Tide, guys, as we talk running backs. All right, let me put Debor back on the screen again. And he's going to kind of talk more about the running backs. But, Jam Miller has earned the right kind of to be the guy. Justice Haynes transferred probably because he didn't think he was getting the ball enough. I'm surprised some of these guys weren't a little more patient, though, understanding the skill set of the guy they had and then the skill set of the guys that are coming. But, he's going to talk about some of those players and what they represent and how they're going to be used at Alabama.
Out of the running backs, and what's Jalen Washington bringing that?
Yeah. It's nice to see we had some just health issues throughout the season last year. So I'll be honest, there's some times where I'm seeing things for the first time too, with a few of them. So we know what Jam can do. You all know as well. And I've seen a lot of him. He continues to just work, and whether it's in the weight room here in the off season, and then just, new quarterback and, do his thing there. Maybe most of the stuff is the same, but even a few little things that we're doing differently just to fit him in the offense, things that Coach Grubb brings, things that we just want to continue to evolve as we know our personnel better, know what Jam does really well. But the rest of the guys, you brought up Dre. I think he's a little combination of kind of all the guys. Kevin's probably our shiftiest, explosive, guy on the roster. Dre's compact, much like maybe you'd see with Daniel and Rich, but got some shiftiness to him. Like his mindset, he just comes here ready to work. Knows he's got a lot to learn and focused on what he can control.
So there you go, Clint. He talked a little bit about the transfer from Illinois, from the Raging Cajuns. Yeah, Louisiana. Another entirely different place. But then Jam, and then the other guys that were hurt that he's seen a lot of this year.
I just thought that was interesting. Like the beginning of that quote, the fact that he was talking about how injuries, like I think Justice Haynes was more banged up than people realized last year.
Right.
I think other guys were more banged up. And the fact that he immediately jumped to Kevin Riley, we know that like before the season started, guys were banged up. We knew that going in, but he's talking about seeing some of these guys like quote unquote for the first time, because of injury and kind of seeing what everything that they can do. Who is he talking about? Because it wouldn't be Dre Washington. I mean, he's seeing him for the first time, but like that wasn't through injury, which he had just mentioned. He said that we know what Jam is, so he's not talking about Jam. So it would need to be Daniel Hill, Richard Young, or Kevin Riley. They all three were banged up at various points last offseason. And so, it's like, okay, this running back room brings some diversity. It's also got some guys who have similar profiles. I think it's good to have both. But what I like about this room is that it's got a lot of these guys have 3-down potential. Like, I don't think you're going to be doing anything as far as you might see Daniel Hill do some different things, maybe short yardage or work in some situational stuff. But I think whether you're talking about Richard Young, like what you might call like a specific type of run, that might vary, but from running back to running back. The fact that the Washington offense under Kaylin Debor was very diverse. We expect it to be more of that this year for Alabama. Like, you can play to their strengths more, and I think they're going to be a little bit more diverse with the running game with how things are going to be set up. But I really like this running back room too, and I think that we're probably there, whether it be Richard Young, Daniel Hill, or Kevin Riley. And part of me, for some odd reason, just the way he was talking, and sometimes there's nothing really to really base this off of. It's just a feeling as I'm listening to some of this stuff. It felt like he was talking about Kevin Riley, and he is very elusive and shifty. He's got some of that home run hitting ability. He's not as big as the other guys, not even close. He runs with some power, but he's not as compact and powerful as really anyone else on the roster outside of maybe, AK Deer. But, that's somebody else. Like, we talk about all these running backs, and because of the fact that it's going to be Jam Miller coming back, the fact that Richard Young, we've been hearing good things about him, the fact that Dre Washington's a guy who kind of does everything pretty well. We expect him to be involved. I probably just forget about Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley a little bit too much. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. They can end up, one or maybe both of them can end up maybe playing a part in this running back room. I just don't know what that would mean for other people.
Well, if they fit the system, if they can get out there and, sometimes you get those systems and it's like the guy that's just can run really fast through the line, not really big, but just really elusive and quick, can do a lot of damage with a team. Sometimes you need a big bruiser, a guy to come in there like a battering ram, So I'm curious to see kind of what that looks like as well. Like, what's the prototypical Kaylin Debor running back? And then what about AK Deer? I mean, I know he's got a lot of work to do, but I think the guy comes in with a great pedigree.
This is tough, Mick, because you look at like a Dylan Johnson, who was kind of a workhorse. I think he was more of a workhorse because he was clearly the best Washington had, and the step down from RB1 to RB2 was significant. It will not be significant in Tuscaloosa this season. And so, he was kind of that power guy, really kind of a, good in pass protection. I wouldn't say like a great receiver out of the backfield. Like, he didn't bring elite traits in that area. I will say, watching Jam Miller earlier today, that cat can run some routes out of the backfield. And he can catch the football like over the shoulder. Like we saw it some last year. I think the creativity with Ryan Grubb is going to be taken to a completely new level. And I think that he is certainly going to be a massive part of that. But, I don't think there is a prototypical back other than like, I think the one cut runners, the outside zone stuff, the inside zone, you do get a lot of zone, but you also get some gap mixed in there as well. I don't think there's one particular style of player that can be successful. Like I think Kevin Riley could be successful, and I think, Richard Young or Dre Washington or some of those guys. I mean, I think a variety of guys could end up having success.
Nice. Spring practice, obviously day off for pro day, but back at it again later this week. And one of the positions we're keeping a close eye on is left guard. And I mean, that's one that really means a lot to Alabama. Here's Coach DeBoer talking about it. And then Clint, you kind of just jump in afterwards, but Wilkin Formby, I mean, wouldn't it be nice if he would just be the guy?
What have you seen from Wilkin Formby? And then also just how do you balance maybe getting people different reps on the offensive line, or focusing them on the position?
Mm-hmm.
Could you put him at left tackle, or are you going to focus him more on right tackle where he's probably going to play?
Yeah, he's been mostly at right tackle. It's not a big deal, but he was sick for a couple of days in there, so didn't missed a couple practices. Allowed other guys to get some reps, which was really good because we're going to need those guys too. Some young bodies in there on the offensive line. But he's back out there today. I thought what stood out to me the first practice in particular, and I believe he was the first two actually. Is his leadership, and just I'm encouraging that out of him. He's, taking the next step, being just more aggressive that way, which I think then carries over to just confidence and play on the football field. But, he's out there, making the calls with confidence. It starts with Parker, works its way out. And, that right side now is kind of the veteran side with he and J-Rob and then Parker, at center. So, like what he brings, and he's had a good offseason in the weight room.
How is that?
Go ahead.
Say, how is that left guard spot looking right now?
Yeah, a few different guys rotating. Gino, has to take snaps at center along with playing guard. He's versatile that way, and we're going to take advantage of that. So we want to have him be able to compete at the interior spots, but also make sure we got a center ready to go too there, and the guy can take the reps with the twos with him, and then Dewberry has done a nice job. You can see him coming along every day, getting more and more comfortable. It takes time for those guys from communication on to trust and execution. And been a few different tackle bodies in there with Caden being out, too. So it's been a little bit of a kind of a, by committee type of situation there on the left side here through the first couple of practices.
There you go, Clint. Sounds like it's a wide open race for these spots on the O-line.
First of all, hearing good things about Wilkin Formby. I think the coaching staff, obviously it's limited because he did get sick, and when we had the open period of practice, he wasn't out there, and we were kind of left wondering why. Apparently it was because he was sick, but from what I've been told, he's been his step forward that he's currently taking is what they were hoping to see from him. And I think that's really encouraging. That, in my opinion, almost has to happen. And the reason that I think that has to happen, we've also heard really, really good things about Jackson Lloyd, the 5-star freshman. But if he ends up being the guy, let's say Jackson Lloyd's just that dude, he's another Jonah Williams ready to come in, man that right tackle job, ends up uprooting Wilkin Formby as the starter. That's fine. That's totally, I think the starting unit, if that is the case and he took that job and he was ready to go, I think they would benefit from that. But from a depth standpoint, that would probably mean that Wilkin Formby wasn't where he needed to be. So if you had to turn to Formby, at least you can turn to somebody and say, well, at least he's kind of an experienced guy. But I just don't think it would bode well for your depth, unless Arkell Newgum ends up being a dude too. But then you brought in a transfer and you brought in a freshman, and both of them hit at a high level. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. That's banking on a lot, I guess, is my point. If Formby can be that dude, and we're hearing really good things about Jackson Lloyd, you've got two really good starting tackles. Caden Proctor has missed the beginning of last season. He's been limited this spring. He wasn't available last spring. I'm not saying he's injury prone by any means, but what I will say is that's something that you've got to monitor. But if you have like a guy like Jackson Lloyd who's doing some good things, now you've kind of got three tackles that you can kind of trust. So I think that's really important. I like how that group is progressing based off of what we're hearing. But, Wilkin Formby is he's a big part of this. And everybody's been talking about like the quote unquote right tackle competition. When Formby is healthy, I don't know how much of a competition that really is right now. That's kind of the way that I'd put it. Left guard is very intriguing because Cam Dewberry, it's like anytime they bring someone in, your immediate thought is, okay, this guy probably didn't transfer to Alabama to sit on the bench.
Right.
Probably wants to play. But at the same time, it's like, you still got to compete for the job. So I'm not saying that he's automatically going to be the starter, but he is a guy who I think the coaching staff really likes. I think they want him at left guard. Doesn't mean that Gino Vandermark can't win that job. But the fact that he's kind of being cross-trained, now it could be easily, just because he's saying, hey, that Gino Vandermark's getting reps at center and guard, doesn't mean that Gino Vandermark is not very much in the competition at left guard. It could be a situation where Gino's your starting left guard, and then if something happens to Parker Brailsford, Gino slides inside the center, and then you put Dewberry in there, and then you're ready to kind of rock and roll. No matter what, Vandermark's going to kind of be that versatile piece where he's going to move around on really any of the three interior spots. But I think Dewberry being, 6'4", 345, he's a massive presence. Jaden Roberts is starting to gain weight. He got pretty light this past season. He's known kind of more as a mauler. Putting those two guys on either side of Parker Brailsford, who's a little bit smaller, more athletic, and you can do more as far as your perimeter run game with that style of player. But as far as creating the consistent push and movement, as far as like your, inside zone and all that stuff, having bigger body players flanking Parker Brailsford probably helps him a little bit. So, I don't know if Cam Dewberry is going to play at 345 this upcoming season. He could have just reported at that and he plays at 335 or whatever. Tyler Booker obviously lost a lot of weight when this coaching staff got there, but I do think he'll be a bigger body player. And I think from a run blocking standpoint, I think he's pretty good. And I think that he's a little bit, I wouldn't say he's a better athlete than Tyler Booker, but I just think he fits this system a little bit better. I still don't think it's ideal for him, but I'm very curious to see how that ends up playing out this spring.
You guys know we love super chats. And as we talk here on the channel, like, subscribe, thumbs up. I ask you that all the time. I know it's a lot for Auburn people. They're like, am I supposed to like? Or am I supposed to subscribe? Or am I supposed to thumbs up? It's a lot, okay? In Lee County, that's a lot. But for us Alabama people, we can do all that. And comment. But super chats are right up there, too. We love them. Tyler in Florida, he says, Riley has some Kenyon Drake. I love that idea, man. And that's a great comp right there. If you get a Kenyon Drake, I got a statue of Kenyon Drake winning a national championship on a kick return against Clemson. I was there. And then Daniel Moore did it, and I got it in there. And I show because we have the 2015 guys a lot over at the studio, so they love it too.
Mick, when Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake were coming out, I did think Derrick Henry was going to have success on the NFL level. I know that there was a lot of question marks. It's the reason he fell to the second round as far as what would translate. The lateral quickness wasn't really there. But I always thought that he's going to be a successful NFL running back. One of my more ignorant takes, which I was a lot less film study at that point in my life than I am now. But I said, as kind of one of my bold takes, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Kenyon Drake ends up being a better NFL running back than Derrick Henry. That was Kenyon Drake ended up being good for quite a while. Actually ended up playing for the Ravens too. But Derrick Henry is going to go down as one of the best NFL running backs of all time, despite the fact that he's almost non-existent as a pass catcher, which is wild. In the current era of the NFL, he's still doing it the workhorse traditional way, and he's defying all logic as far as the amount of tread on the tires at this point in his career, and the fact that he's just not slowing down. But Kevin Riley and what he can provide Alabama's running back room, it is a little bit different. I don't know how important that difference will be to the coaching staff, but he is a guy. This is a top 100 prospect coming out of high school. He's an in-state kid, a local kid. It would be nice if he ended up being involved in this competition, but it's like with anything else. I always say this: Kevin Riley might deserve opportunities. At whose expense, though? That's the only question I have. Like, who are you sending? Is it Richard Young? Okay, but there's a lot of people that are really high on Richard Young. They wanted to see what he does. He's a former top 100 recruit as well. Dre Washington was brought in for a reason. It wasn't to be RB4. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now. So, and the coaching staff likes him. Jam Miller is a guy who probably deserves more touches than he got last year, averaging less than 12 carries per game. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know how many more he'll get, but is it his added touches that you were expecting to get for him? Is that going to Kevin Riley? Like, you always got to keep these things in mind.
Good question. And hey, for the super chat, you get 2 for Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? No, it's actually not Tuesday, but
Wednesday.
2 for Wednesday. Hump day. All right. One running back that'll have more receiving yards than rushing yards. Good question. I mean, I would think the guy that was the best receiver would be Jam Miller. I mean, just from his experience.
And he's not going to have more receiving yards than rushing yards.
But you know what I mean? Like, he can catch and has proven that. Carlos says Jam Miller. I see what I kind of feel the same way off the jump, but it'd be somebody else. It'd be like a Kevin Riley, like that they kind of just swing passes to or something and then get him out in the space.
I don't think anybody ends up having that, to be honest. But if there was one, and I had to predict it now based off of me thinking who's going to be there at the top of the depth chart and skill sets and all that, it'd probably be Dre Washington. Like, if he ends up being kind of that third running back and he's more of like I think he's got good pass protection traits. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He is compact, but he's pretty elusive. Like Kaylin Debor said, he's kind of got a little bit of everything to him. I could see him being a guy who ends up maybe, because they're getting other guys involved in the run game, maybe he gets put out there on passing downs and quite a few situations, and you're getting Ty Simpson those pass attempts by throwing it to the running back, but the running back gets to be involved. Like, that kind of started happening this past year, where there was some games where like Justice Haynes was catching 4 or 5 balls and getting 4 or 5 carries. And I think it was just more so like, hey, you're still getting this number of pass attempts to force defenses to respect the passing game, but you're also keeping more running backs involved as far as the number of touches, because so many were being taken away through Jalen Milroe's legs. It's kind of a way to offset it, I guess. If you see something like that a little bit, I'd probably say Dre Washington would be your best bet. But, he's a powerful guy. He's good between the tackles. He's got some home run hitting ability. I think it would be kind of criminal to have him in that type of role, which is why I don't think that ends up happening. I just think you'd probably be the best bet.
Okay. Hey, great questions, guys, and thank you. And again, we appreciate you being here. Oh, and let me throw that up there. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. You don't have to be out here in Vegas. You don't have to make the 4-hour flight after an hour flight to get out here. You can just go to mybookie.ag, 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip when using the promo code Crimson. And that's us. Hey, guys, the other part of this is elephant in the room. Kenny White's going to be on there with Jay Coker and me breaking down the game like Vegas style. So make sure that you check that show out. It's going to be up pretty soon. So chew on this one. Maybe we drop that one in the morning for you guys. A little NCAA talk. And Coker's got his famous grandfather, Jules Monnier. Do you ever heard of him before?
No.
Jules was a baller. Yeah, I'm being serious. Like, he was like a great baseball player and basketball player back in the day. But with a name like Jules Monnier, I mean, that's Cajun right there, man.
Hey.
Jules.
So baseball player, huh?
Said he did, but he was really good at basketball.
So he was one of those multi-sport guys.
Multi-sport guys. All right, some of you guys are bailing out on us. The show's not over yet, people. Just stay.
We have a process, Mick. We always do this, man. You could tell when we're cruising in that direction. I can't blame people. I kind of am the same way, but you're right. We're not done.
All right, let's talk just a little hoops. We're really going to get into that on the other show. But what I want to tell you guys is that Robert Morris is going to be 11:40 Central Time on Friday. It's a big game for Alabama. Last year, Auburn lost in a 15 versus 2 matchup to Yale. So this is a game that you can lose. You know, Grant Nelson's probably not going to play. And if he is, he's not going to be 100%. That team ought to be good enough to win without him, but it's still a tough game. So, you know, we'll be keeping an eye on that. Baseball with another dramatic win. Walked it off against South Alabama. They're now 21-1. Tennessee lost. So Tennessee's coming in on Thursday, and that's going to be a big matchup. Bama's ranked number 10 in the Baseball America rankings. They got a bunch of the rankings. Stacy put them all on Cover Crimson, but both teams with 1 loss now and a pile of wins. But this is a litmus test game. Tennessee's the defending national champs.
I'm sure you're a big fan of those Vols baseball team.
I like Tony. I mean, I don't say I'm friends with Tony Vitello, but I know him, and he's a good guy, and he's really smart. It doesn't surprise me he won a national championship. But, you know, Rob Vaughn is turning some heads now. And I know I said it, they played some games they should have won at the beginning of the year, but that doesn't mean you always win those. You put together a 21-1 run, and you go to Texas A&M and you sweep them. Hey, you better take that seriously. So that's pretty exciting. Softball, you know what, man? Softball feels like they're fading a little bit. You know, we'll see what happens with women's hoops. They play Green Bay in their first round game. We're pulling for all of them, you know, so it'll be a lot of fun. But the NCAA tournament, this is a team that Kenny White thinks can go to the Final Four. And you guys can watch Elephant in the Room, and he'll tell you that for himself. But, you know, let's get him to the Final Four, Clint. Anything else on this Pacific Coast time edition of Cover Crimson when we go West Coast style?
No, just next time we get on here, which I hope you do when you win your big money and you don't just randomly decide to quit the show. I need you to show off your winnings. Go spend it all on like a watch or something. Something
Like
absurd. Yeah, just something that everybody's like, yeah, I would have X amount of money and I've got this watch. Is what
I was at the baggage claim, and they had a Rolex, had an advertisement hanging up in there, and I was like, "This is one place where people would buy a Rolex."
yeah, 100% right.
I've never seen a Rolex display at the Birmingham airport. You know, they don't have one in Pensacola International Airport. All right, guys, look, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you in the comments section. Oh yeah, look, West Coastin'. I forgot to get to you. I'm gonna get to you. How about Circa for the Bama game on Sunday? Come and hang, man. Come and hang. It's the big Circa Sportsbook. That's the game plan right now.
You think if I leave now, I can make it?
Yeah. And look, West Coastin', if that changes, because some of these sports books there's so many people in there, there's no spots, or they charge a bunch of money. If that turns into that, we may go somewhere else. But right now the plan is Circa. Make sure you watch the show tomorrow. And if anything changes, I'll tell you. But that's the game plan right now. So, yeah, I'll see you there, man. Roll Tide. You can yell Roll Tide with me. Jim, you never know what happens down here. Really out here. So what do they say? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. All right, guys. I just